Welcome to RECO12. I'm Justin, your host and a grateful child of an all-powerful, all-loving God. RECO12 is all about exploring the common threads of addiction and sharing tools and hope from those on a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and places to learn and support one another. Our speakers represent various fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, reflecting the richness of our shared experiences. Join us in this journey of recovery and unity. Today's speaker for the 214th meeting is Thierry F., who is a first-time RECO12 speaker, and I'm excited to hear his share on the topic of the spiritual life is not a theory. We'll get to his talk in the Q&A afterwards here in just a minute, but first for a little bit of business. The RECO12 family of recovery resources is expanding with more support for both addicts and their loved ones. Explore additional RECO12 podcasts by checking the chat in our live meetings or the podcast show notes. We're also exploring the possibility of creating resources in multiple languages worldwide. If you are in long-term recovery and speak in your native language is something other than English, and you're interested in hosting a RECO12 meeting in your native language, please contact me at RECO12pod@gmail.com. We're in discussions right now with Spanish, and we're looking at a couple of other languages, hoping to get some of those resources out there in this coming year. RECO12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue our mission. Thank you all who have donated recently and in the past. A special thanks goes out this week to Harvey and to Geraldine for your kind and generous support. If you'd like also to support RECO12 and become a spearhead, visit www.reco12.com/support or send donations to our PayPal or Venmo that I'll put in the chat here and in the show notes. For a one-time or monthly donations options, your support does make a difference in sharing our message of recovery. We look forward each meeting to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for today, Thierry F. And this is his quick bio. Thierry was promised that permanent recovery is achievable if he does exactly what it says in how it works into action and in trying to help others and in being a demonstration of the principles in all of his affairs. Thierry testifies that his experience validates that promise. Take it away, Thierry. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Justin, for my timer on. My name is Thierry. I'm a cocaine addict and an alcoholic. Honor and privilege to be here. Thank you, Justin, for inviting me here. My sobriety date is June 1st, 2019, and a miracle happened on that day where the gift of desperation screamed louder than the craving that was beyond my mental control. I didn't quit getting high. I was separated. I have a home group. My home group is Outright Mental Defectives. We meet Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. I have a wonderful speaker coming up, Reggie W. from LA. So come on by if you're interested. I'll put the digits in the chat afterwards. I have a beautiful relationship with the power greater myself. And I have a sponsor, and I also sponsor other men. And, I don't even like the word sponsor, honestly. I like the word tour guide or big book tour guide or spiritual advisor. And my favorite, a friend. In chapter working with others, when we approach an individual, they're a prospect, then they become a candidate, then they become a protege. A protege is someone that's very special to you. Then they become a lifelong friend. And that's how I view the people that I work with. It's not a hierarchy. It's not me standing on a spiritual mountaintop screaming, hallelujah, or walking shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand together on this broad highway. And I pick spiritual life is not a theory. Today, and I kind of had a revelatory experience, I think probably a year and a half ago, where it just dawned on me that what the heck is the point of doing the steps? And the point was to live right here, right now, and to live in the moment where God operates in the world of the spirit. And how do I know I really understand if I live in this world of the spirit, if I'm experiencing and I'm living the 9-step promises, right? New freedom and new happiness, right? Feeling of uselessness and self-pity will go away. I will suddenly realize that God is doing for me what I can't do for others. And that was a process. And I listen to people sometimes and they say, I'm living in steps 10, 11, and 12. And, I look at that and I kind of chuckle because that's an easier, softer way, you know? In my book says a business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke, meaning if I don't take regular inventory, I could drink again or I could go insane. What step am I on? I'm on all of them. I'm living every single one. Today, I'm a demonstration of how it works. I'm a demonstration of in the action. It's not about learning, it's about becoming everybody. And when you become this way of life, you start to be this way of life. I start to be that demonstration of, like I said earlier, of how it works. I start to be a demonstration of the fear prayer. God, please remove my fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be. Be. Be what? Be a father, be a husband, be a friend, be an employee. Not Don't be the boss, be an employee. You're not the director, right? Be a child of God. And it's funny, I remember, I'm a huge advocate of practicing the disciplines of 10 and 11, because I'm operating right here, right now. I'm supposed to grow in effectiveness and understanding. I'm supposed to grow in the image and likeness of my creator. How am I supposed to grow in understanding? How well am I listening to the great reality that's within me, Justin? And what exactly is that? That little voice that tells you to stop fully at a stop sign instead of blowing right through it? That's the voice that we're talking about. God consciousness, which is the essence of a spiritual experience. How am I supposed to grow in effectiveness? How well am I carrying out God's will? And what does that mean? How well am I living right here, right now, living from moment to 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 moment basis? The spiritual life is not a theory I have to live in. I remember practicing we practice, watch, ask, and I was practicing ask all throughout the day that day. And I remember I'm driving to work and I'm thinking about how, what's going on with my job situation. I can't get this career going down. Our 10 steps is continue to watch for the manifestations of self, resentment, self pity, all that stuff, right? It doesn't say continue to listen to the manifestations of self. So what happens when I listen, I'm listening to the story in my head. I'm listening to the minion in my head. I'm listening to the narrative in my head. They're just thoughts, but I believe that these thoughts are real. And when I believe that these thoughts are real, I'm going to attach myself to it and I'm going to go play God. And when I play God, I hurt you, I step on your toes, you retaliate at me, and I get angry. And then I say, "How dare you, Justin?" And then I screw you over. And then I'm in self pity, and I think drink solution, drink answer, or drug solution, drug answer, right? And I remember I'm driving, and I have this story in my head. You ever driving, and then all of a sudden you just call yourself a piece of shit? You're a loser, Terry. You're a nobody. You deliver pizzas. What's up with that? Right? You can't even get a union job. You can't get a pension job. You're a loser. This is what's going on in my head. And I'm listening to it while I'm driving. But the good news is that I am a watcher as well. I continue to watch for the manifestations of self, right? I watch. It's kind of wild when you practice watch for a considerable period of time. I recommend that you just put it on a note card, put it in like on your dashboard. Because I think a lot when I drive. I listen to that story when I drive a lot. Put it on your dash and just watch, 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 watch. And I was watching myself being driven, not literally I was driving, but I was being driven by fear. It's like Mark Houston would say, step into a cab and the cab driver looks back. Remember, I'm asleep walking around, my spirit's asleep, right? And the cab driver looks back. He's like, "My name is Fear. Where'd you like to go today?" Fear just drives me all the way because I'm asleep, walking around thinking that I'm awake. Talks about it in our 12 steps, having had a spiritual awakening. What does that mean? That means my spirit's been asleep. It's time to wake up, everyone. And because I'm watching, I pause in that moment. That's why we pause when we're agitated or doubtful. When we do that, we put a disturbance in that story. We put a gap in that story, and the grace of God will come on in and will say, said something to me that was influential. It said, "God, please remove my fear or I like to say mental anxiety and remove my attention to what you would have me be." And you know what I said, Justin? Be a driver, because I was swerving. Going like this, man. I'm like, "Oh, right." And I'm back here right now, living in the moment, right? That's what we're doing here. It talks about in more about alcoholism, that we have, we have four characters that give us. One's a fictional character, the Jaywalker, but we have the carpet slipper dude, right? And then we have Jimmy, and then we have Fred. And carpet slipper dude, right? They had all had an insane thought, and they all made a decision slash action based on an insane thought, and they went and drank. Carpet slipper dude, right? I can't be. He was a real alcoholic. I knew if I drank, he'd lose all control. Blah blah blah, right? And what happened with him? He's like, I'm gonna stay bone dry until I'm successful in business, and he did for 25 years. I know Bill stretched the truth a little bit. Bill was just trying to make a point, which was a good point. So he stayed dry for a long time. And then at 25 years, successful business, you know what? I'm qualified to drink like other people. He had an insane idea. And then out came the slippers, carpet slippers, and he started drinking again. And the dude was dead in 4 years, right? Am I convinced I'm in a progressive illness that I get worse, never better, right? Am I convinced that I have to do this continuous admission that I am a real alcoholic and a real addict? That I never, over any period of considerable time, that I get worse, never better. I love how the book says that we are like men and women who lost their legs, we never grow new ones. I mean, let's look at that for a hot second. Hypothetically, I'm looking at Justin. Justin's got no arms, he's got no legs. And I asked Justin, hey, Justin, come on, stand up. Give me a standing ovation, buddy. Give me a hey, a hooray, right? Pass me the remote, bro. You can't do it. He lost the power, choice, and control when it comes to that. I have to make that a regular admission. The 1930s definition of admission or admit means to let in. I'm letting into my soul, into my gut, that I'm this real alcoholic. I have to live step one every single day. I wake up every single morning and I say, hey, Terry, good morning. So I say, God, I'm sorry. I say, good morning, God. I stole this from Babe. Surprise me. Hey, where am I going today, God, right? And I say, good morning, Terry. You're an alcoholic. You're an addict. Pay attention. And I'm like, oh, pay attention. Remember who you were. Remember what you were, right? Remember about those days. Remember the pain. Remember why you're willing to do whatever it takes for victory over alcohol. Remember why you're willing to do whatever it takes for a spiritual experience. Because our 12 steps says having had a spiritual awakening. That's in the past tense. That means I have to continuously have a spiritual experience. Why? Because the spiritual experience has an expiration date, everyone. I can't stay sober off the spiritual experience I had 5 years ago. I can't stay clean off the shower I took 3 days ago, even though I think so. No one can smell me. I'm good. I put deodorant on. I put mouthwash. I wash my face with water. I'm good. I can't stay full off the ham sandwich I had 3 days ago. I have to grow and maintain this spiritual experience, right? And I don't even know where I just went on a little tangent there. Oh yeah, back to my three guys, right? So then we got Jimmy. I love Jimmy. Jimmy's a fun cat. Jimmy inherited a lucrative automobile agency, right, Justin? So he didn't work. Sorry, I'm going to curse. He didn't work for shit. He was just given this lucrative automobile agency. And what he did, he drank and lost it all, right? And he knew that if he drank, he would lose his wife, his reputation, blah, 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 right? You would think that would keep him sober for the rest of his life, right? Jimmy had to work for that same automobile agency. He had words with his boss. He came to work on Tuesday. What happened on Monday, Jimmy? Why did you go to work on Monday, right? Because he thinks he's still the boss. I don't know. That's my opinion, right? He had words with the boss, so he had a resentment. What's behind resentment? It's fear, everybody. What's behind fear is self-reliance. The great I's, the great MY's, the great four me's. I'll give you guys an example of what that means. I don't feel like going to a meeting. What's up with my bank account? You know what? My time is really important. It's Super Bowl Sunday. I don't have time to listen to a fifth step, even though I know they're fighting for their life. My Jets are in the Super Bowl, hypothetically speaking. you know, I need mine. I need mine. Because of that, I'm being selfish. I'm being self-centered. I'm self-consumed, self-absorbed, thinking about me, me, me. Right? What's the national anthem of the recovery programs? Me, 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 me. Right? Right? And because of me being selfish and self-centered, I'll have an insane thought that comes in, just like Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy literally went to a diner to try and sell a car to someone. That's like me trying This is in the 1930s, everyone. Every main means of transportation was by boat or by horse, you know? So it's like me going to the South Bronx and trying to sell Teslas and Ferraris at the local bodega. Like, Jimmy was on a mission to go drink. Remember when you have a justified resentment? Anyone been resentful before? Oh, yeah? Been disturbed and angry? Yeah, I'm going to drink at you, bro. I'm going to drink at you, bro. Right? And because of that, I'm going to be so consumed, I'll have an insane thought. And Jimmy had an insane thought. He said, suddenly. That's a time frame, everybody. Suddenly is right here, right now. Suddenly the thought crossed my mind, it'll be cool. That's what they used to, that's how they talk back then. It'll be cool to put whiskey or put some milk in my whiskey or whiskey in my milk, whatever it says. Right. And then he took a drink and then off to the asylum for Jimmy. Right. Suddenly. Think about our 9-step promises. Suddenly, right? Suddenly, I realized that God was doing for me what I could never do for myself. That's a time frame. That's right here, right now, everybody. I'm going to say that one more time. Right here, right now. But here's the good news, everybody. Where's God? Right here, right now. There's one who has all power. That one's God. May you find him now. We read how it works all the time, and we don't realize that that's actually an instruction. That's a time frame. I'm supposed to find God right here, right now. And I'll get back to that. Fred, not a cloud on the horizon. I mean, this dude thought he conceded he had some of the symptoms, right? I'm just a little pregnant. Yeah, just a little pregnant. It's not going to be that bad, right? And then because of that, me Myers came out, right? They, you know, thought of having a couple cocktails and drinks, and this dude's in a taxi cab, blah blah blah. Long story short, they all had an insane idea, and they took that action slash made that decision based on that insane idea. And everybody in between that insane idea and that action slash decision for that insane idea is a very small space, but occupies a very very large God. Remember, suddenly, right here, right now. The insane thought happens in the now, but so does God. That's why I said I've been separated from alcohol. We build this relationship with this power which will separate us. That's why I try to grow and maintain this spiritual experience on a regular basis. That's why I practice the disciplines of step 10 on a regular basis. That's why I practice the disciplines of step 11. That's why I work with others to live in the moment right here, right now. I was just working with a new guy earlier, and we were going over step 10, and we were talking about, I just made an amend yesterday, literally to one of my coworkers who was talking crap about me. And what did I do? This was 3 months ago. I was like, oh, yeah, he wants to talk crap with me. I'm going to take all his good deliveries. I took everything, kept doing it. And you know what would go through my mind? You know, God, you get kind of brainwashed here. What happened was that only the victor only seemed to win. His moments of triumph were short lived. It kept going over and over and over. And I'd be so disturbed at work. And whenever I'm disturbed, it's because I'm disturbable. Whenever I'm upset, it's because I'm upsettable. Whenever I'm offended, it's because I'm offendable. There's something wrong with me. There's a line in the book that says we think our troubles are basically our own making. That is a statement. Do I think that's true for me? If I look at the positive attribute of that, that means that no one can take anything from me. That whenever I'm disturbed, there's something wrong with my belief systems and my old ideas that are creeping in and that are trying to run the show, me trying to play God in my mind. That's what's happening. Right. So what happened? I mean, I literally was just talking about it with this guy. Last week, I thought about walking towards his car, and we try to practice carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. What I like to do with that, there's about 12 spiritual exercises. If you guys want to, I'll put my number in the chat. You guys want to go over it more than can. I don't have enough time to go through it. I got 9 minutes. What I do is I connect that with the 11th spiritual practice, which is thy will, not mine, be done. I like to get rid of not mine. I like to say thy will is being done. When is that? That's a time frame. When is? Right here, right now. So thy will is being done. Show me the way. Show me a vision. Give me a shoe. And I'm literally walking halfway to this car. You know what I'm going to do to this car, Justin? I'm going to spit on his car. Yeah, you're looking at an AA convention speaker. Yeah, you're looking at a CA convention speaker. The great I, the great NY. You're looking at me, Mr. Spiritual Man, Mr. Sponsor, blah, blah, blah. I was about to spit on this cat's car because of an event that happened 2 months ago. It's not what we do. It's not the event. When I'm angry and I'm looking at the event, it's not that. So it's what I'm doing with the event moving forward. That's when I look at my fourth column in my inventory, and I'm looking at my mistakes, not my part. If I say my part, that means I'm going to be hung up on their part. I'm going to forget about my part, right? It's my mistakes. My mistakes are just invitations to lessons learned. That's when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. We don't destructively review our day. I'm not looking at my review with guilt, shame, and remorse. I'm not looking at that with the lenses of that. I'm looking at this as a way for me to learn and grow from and have corrective measures. And what happens is I'm walking towards this cat's car. I'm saying, thy will is being done. Show me the way. Like, F you guys. I'm spinning at this cat's car. And I turned. I walked away. I didn't do it. This guy doesn't speak English. I actually needed an interpreter to make amends to him. And I had to be very blunt to him. I just said, hey, look, man, I've been selfish. I've been stealing deliveries from you. I've been gossiping and talking crap about you. I'm an a-hole. I'm an a-hole. How can I make this right? Right? And he's like, no, you're good. I'm like, no, this means a lot to me. How can I make this right? And is there anything I've done to you that I'm not aware of that I've pulled more harm on you? That's a wonderful question to ask. Is there anything that I've done to you that I should be aware of? Because I've been drunk and high most of my life. I've hurt people and I don't even know it. I didn't even know it. I mean, I was making when you work with people, when you go through the book with someone, what happens is that God will constantly reveal more to you as you go on, right? And I mean, I was reading with somebody and he was talking about financial stuff that he did, how he screwed people over and workers' comp. I'm like, oh my God, I did that. I mean, I took 50K from an insurance company, right? And I didn't pay it back. I actually faked an injury, so I got paid. How am I going to make amends to that? Well, there's in our process in our book, it says where other people involved. So I had to discuss it with another person who was involved. He said, F you, Terry. I ain't doing that. I'm not going to jail for what you did. And I'm like, okay. I talked to my sponsor. My sponsor's like, okay, well, we tried that route. Let's try and make it. By the way, if you think that making amends and not harming others and harming yourself and you not doing it, that's a BS way. That's an easier, softer way. There's a way to make every single one of your amends, right? The ninth step is a full surrender, me giving everything to a power greater than myself so I can enter this world in the spirit. And if I'm balking and if I'm making and mismanaging, I'm managing the principles. That's what I've done for a long time. I manage the principles. I manage the steps. I used to force amends on people. I used to force myself to write inventory to feel better. That doesn't work. Doesn't work. And I had a agent of God, a conduit of God, a messenger of God, someone who was in a recovered state, like my boy Justin said, a spearhead of God's ever advancing creation, hit me up and said, Terry, why don't you try donating some money to a charitable foundation? He said, Wounded Warrior Project. I'm like, all right, no problem. And then I looked at, he sent me the information, I clicked on it and then called him. And then who got still disturbed later on? Me, because I had some unfinished amends to make. Let me tell you about unfinished amends. It's like driving on a flat tire and praying and hoping that flat tire goes away. Sooner or later, your car's going to crash. Call them up. I put my credit card on file. I have to pay $89 for the next 49 years of my life. How free do you want to be, everyone? How free do you want to be? Right? The spiritual life is not a theory. I have to live it. And I'm practicing these disciplines in 10. And because I'm practicing 10 so much, I have an amend that crosses my mind. I have a program where it says I fear about it, right? I fear about making this amend. I ask God to remove it, right? It helps me get through it. If I don't feel anything, I discuss it with another individual. Discuss. My least favorite thing to do in the 10 step is to discuss because I like to listen. I like to isolate. When I discuss, what happens is that it's not a duet when I'm with another person discussing. It's a trio. Me, that other person, and God. God is dancing between the raindrops. Something magical happens in that moment where we rip off the mask, just like Babe says, and we give out our shoe. We give the garbage garbage to the Father of Light who presides over us all and evaporates it, right? Now, what happens if discussing doesn't work? Turn my thoughts to someone I can help. God gave me the power to turn my thoughts to someone I can help. What does that mean? What about those other alcoholics? What about those addicts? Doesn't say just alcoholics and addicts. It says others. What about my mom? How's my mommy doing? I haven't spoke to my mom in about a day. I should call her. This just popped in my mind right now. What about my brother? He's in Hawaii. How's he doing in Hawaii? I wish I was there, by the way. How's my dad doing? How are my coworkers? Turn. Love and tolerance is my code. Love and tolerance is another very difficult spiritual exercise to practice. Look at your current codes today. Is slander and gossip your current code? That was my current. I was taking naps. My first year of my recovery was all about naps, baby. Yeah, that was my code. Love and tolerance. Yeah, okay. Right. Taking naps was my code. Love and tolerance. Love and tolerance. Love. You start practicing love and tolerance as a way of life. The spiritual life is not a theory. Let me tell you something magical will happen. You'll start loving people who are unlovable. That's a real spiritual. Think about Bill. Bill was on the hospital bed when he had his the white light moment, blah blah blah. You could say, and he's thinking about all the thousands of alcoholics he could help. Look at your own experience with day 2 or 3 in detox. Were you thinking about everybody else? Hell no, hell no. I was just sweating, drenched in sweat, self pity. I'm also a recovered self pity holic, by the way. Right? Cease fighting. Here's another spiritual exercise for everybody. Spiritual life is not a theory. Try practicing living in a place of neutrality right here, right now. This will test your spiritual fitness. Don't look at a clock or a watch for 4 to 12 hours. Ooh. Ooh. And live a completely God directed life. Watch yourself get to places without you using the watch. Watch you be moved through God consciousness. That's what it talks about in our 10 step. It says, and I'll finish up here. I got a minute left. If we have carefully followed directions, time out. When did I thought this was a suggestion, bro. When did I start following directions? On page 58, it says, rarely have we seen a person fail to thoroughly followed our path. 19 in the original manuscript said directions. If I do exactly what it says, like in my bio, from that point to this point, if I carefully follow these directions, I will have the sense of God's spirit enter into me. Right? It says to some extent we become God conscious. We've begun to develop this vital sixth sense, means necessary for life. To take your vitals in the hospital. What happens is just God starts to become part of my nucleus, starts to become part of every fiber of my body. It starts to start to be a working part of my mind. What happens when I start walking to a guy's car to go spit on it? It says, don't do it, right? Don't listen to that thought. I react to life differently, which is what? The essence of a spiritual experience, which I must grow and maintain in order not just to stay sober, but to be happy, useful, and whole. My name is Terry. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And last but not least, pew, 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 pew.
Terry, awesome. I loved your energy. I loved your message, and we'll get into some Q&A here from our live audience. A reminder to them, if you have a question for Terry, type it in the Q&A link at the bottom of your window. We'll get to those here in a minute. But before we get to that, man, I have got to jump in on this last spiritual exercise you recommended about getting away from a clock or a watch for 12 hours. Just you saying that just put a huge bit of anxiety in my soul. I am a slave to the clock. I am owned by the clock. Talk to me about your experience in doing that and how that maybe has set you free from, I don't know if you have that same experience as I do, but how that might set me free in doing something like that.
Yeah, I mean, this really tests your spiritual fitness. It tests are you currently in the bondage of self? Am I listening to the story in my head you're talking about? I'm a slave to the watch. What do I have to do? Where do I have to be? Work, work, work. Time, time, time. Blah, blah, blah. That's the narrative in head. That's the story in head. We weren't born like that, everyone. I look at my son, he's 2 years old. He's not thinking the drive for success is on. I have arrived. How dark it is before the dawn. Curse myself for being. No, he's not thinking any of that. Faith has to work 24. No, he's not thinking any of that. He has a constant connection with a power greater than himself. Well, that's what we're doing, everybody. We're going back home. We're going back home to the land of milk and honey. We're going back to the fourth dimension. We're going back to the spirit of the universe. We're going back home to right here, right now, living from moment to moment to moment to moment basis. And to answer your question, it was not easy. I lasted 5 minutes the first time, and then my mind just went, it felt really uncomfortable. Restless, irritable, discontent. Those are some kind words from the doctor's opinion. I feel like ripping my skin off, right? I mean, it's a practice, it's a way of life. What you practice grows stronger. It's like learning an instrument, like learning a language. The more I practice, second time I did it, lasted 20 minutes. The third time I did it, lasted an hour. The fourth time I did it, lasted 4 hours. And etc. I kept going up and then going back and forth, back and forth. Depends on it. What I recommend is that you practice just one. Practice wash all throughout the day. Just watch. Watch for the manifestation. Watch for patterns of collision. If there's collision in your life, that means there's selfishness and self-centeredness in your life, and you don't even know it unless you write it down. Because most of my resentments or most of my issues are just made up in my mind. Fancied or real, they have the power to kill us. That's why I love resentment. I get power from that shit, right?
Yeah.
But when I write it down, it could kill me at the same time. So, like, answer your question, what you practice grows stronger. It's like a spiritual muscle, a love muscle, whatever you want to call it. The more you practice it, the more effective and the more efficient you are. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Terry, for giving me the motivation to give that a shot, and also the grace to just say, hey, if I last 10 minutes, don't beat myself up tomorrow. Last 15 minutes, whatever it is, and keep practicing. Thank you. All right, next question comes in from our live audience. It's from Sal. Sal says, thank you. I loved your view on sponsorship and when you called a sponsor a friend. And Sal asks, is there a movie that comes to mind for you in which someone with experience helps a friend with his or her spiritual development? Thoughts on that?
A movie?
Yeah.
Ooh. I don't know. That's a good question.
How about maybe a real life experience? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm thinking like inspirational movies over here.
Yeah. How about a real life experience where somebody you sponsored when you initially were like, I don't know about this dude, and then that person became a friend?
So remember I talked about love and tolerance being our coach. It's like smack right in the middle of step 10. Like, why? Because what we're doing is our 10-step promises come into this portion where it says, assuming we are spiritually fit, we can do all sorts of remarkable things other people shouldn't tell us to do, like we can't go to movies with the liquor on all that stuff, right? People, places, and things, right? I'm a free person. I could literally go anywhere, right? But that's telling me if I'm assuming I'm spiritually fit, that means am I experiencing the 10-step promises? Am I living the 10-step promises? Am I in this place of neutrality? Am I seizing, fighting anything, including alcohol and blah, blah? And with this love and tolerance gig, if I'm practicing this as a way of life, what happens is I'm going to come across people, addicts or alcoholics, whatever, and their main chief characteristic of every single one of them is defiance. I have what is called ADD, alcoholic defiance disorder. Do I see myself in their shoes? Because I was the same way. Like you start loving these people, even though they're unlovable, but you know that they're sick. I mean, it says on page 89, remember that they're very ill. I have to remember that people who are perhaps spiritually sick, like myself too, right? And I love doing inventory. I mean, especially with the bridge prayer or the resentment prayer or the fear or whatever, anger prayer. I like to say the me prayer. It says, God save me from being angry, right? Say I'm angry at Justin for telling me only got shutting me off after 25 minutes. Right? Justin called me an a-hole, right? Hypothetically speaking, right? Have I ever called anyone an a-hole? Yes, I have. And like ourselves, they are sick too, right? What about my wife? She hit me, right? Have I ever hit my wife? No, I've never do that. Have I ever been tempted to hit my wife? Hell yeah. Like ourselves, they are sick too. The same pain that drives them drives me too. So God doesn't have any grandchildren. We're all brothers and sisters here. If I look at another individual who is perhaps being spiritually sick, I'm loving them regardless of what they're doing. I
Mm.
know I'm not a prisoner of what they say, do, or think, or whatever, right? So, in inspirational thinking or inspirational movies or situations and stuff like that, I've seen a lot. And what I've noticed is I have to remember that these people are very ill, and I go with where they're at. I don't tell them what to do, like me standing on a spiritual mountaintop. I used to do that. That was a mistake. When you read Working with Others, I recommend that you try practicing and living. Spiritual life is not a theory. Living the don'ts, nevers, never talk down to an alcoholic from any spiritual hilltop, never criticize. Our main aim is to be helpful. Practice that. Do not, do not be, I forgot what it says. You don't want to, do not raise prejudice. Don't talk about God, 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 God. All right. Why on earth if I start talking about the solution all day, why on earth does anyone want what I have if we don't share the same problem? It's kind of similar to it. And I'll finish with this. Like, when Bill approached Bob, and Bob gave him 15 minutes. And that's what he said to Bill. He's like, look, you got 15 minutes, bro. That's how they talked back then. They said, bro, you got 15 minutes, bro. Right? He didn't hit him with God. He didn't hit him with a solution. He hit him with the medical facts about alcoholism, and he hit him with a story. Right? And afterwards, Billy's walking away to grab his coat, puts on his coat, and Bob's like, "Hold on, bro." Remember, that's how they talk back then. Hold on, bro. Right? And he said, "Let me tell you my story." And they shared experience, strength, and hope. Right? If you just take this program, you put it into a blender, the concepts, the traditions, the steps, the meetings, the big book, AA comes of age, blah 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 blah, and you put it in a blender, you shake it, put it down into a drink. It's just one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic, sharing experience, strength, and hope. Yeah,
Mm.
that's what I try and do. If I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry I couldn't think of a movie
No,
off the top of my head.
good, good. Thank you so much, Terry, for that. We've got a couple more questions that came in from our live audience. This next one comes from Ryan. Ryan says, Terry, thank you so much for your share. It did my soul some good today. I especially appreciate the pattern I hear about identifying defects of character and acting on changing right now. I have a friend who has criticized 12 stepping because, as he said it, quote, the steps helped me to stop acting out, but they never taught me how to be any different. Can you talk a bit about the process of how you know what to do to be better?
Ooh, that was a good question. Um, Back to that fear prayer. I mean, I put everything in there. Please remove my resentment and remind me what I have to be. Please remove my criticism and remind me what you have to be. And then be what? Be a listener. Be tolerant, be kind, be loving. You know, this is all about, the 12 steps, the big book. It's not the treasure, it's a map. It's a map to a power greater than yourself which will help you live and live happy. I said it's not about learning, it's about becoming. And then you start to be this way of life and you start to change regardless. You, God will change you without your permission, in spite of you, right? Um, a process. That's a process. That's a series of actions that happen in my life. Regardless, it says your steps helped me to stop acting out, but never taught me how to be any different. I don't know. That's an experience they had alone. My experience is that I had to change because I was literally outright mental defective when I came in here. I mean, I thought everybody was brainwashed in AA, CA, all those places. My brain needed to be washed. I needed a good brainwashing. I was cuckoo. I was cuckoo for I was just watching. Randomly, I would look at old videos of myself acting out crazy. And I remember I was in my car driving like this, high off cocaine, drunk at the same time, talking about the government and how much shitty this corporation, slurring my words while driving. I was nuts. I'm not the same person I was prior to that. That's why
Mm.
I practiced. I lived step one. I remember my pain. I remember who I am. And because if I took one drink or I took one drug, that person, he's dead, but he could be easily resurrected again. The old personality likes to come back. The ego will take on a different face. Talking about different personality, different. The ego can become spiritual really fast, everybody. Mr. AA sponsor. That's a good one. People not doing what I tell them to do. It's in the book. Why don't you do it? I did it. right? And I'm disturbed and I'm upset that they're not doing it. I'm hurt, threatened, or interfere with because I have a new belief system that's killing me, which comes from the manifestations of self, the meaning in my head. What I think is right. Whenever I'm judging, I think I'm right. Whenever I'm right, I'm playing God. I never knew that I would be playing God in sobriety with Mr. Spiritual Man. Look at currently who you are. I mean, yeah, multiple different ways to answer that question, but I would recommend writing inventory with someone who's in a recovered state and telling not just one person, but telling multiple people your fifth step. And they'll give you different perspectives on what's going on. So I hope
I
that
like,
answers your question. Yeah.
yeah, I like that idea. Hey, you know what? Maybe getting different perspectives on your fifth step might be useful. I mean, it talks about admitting to self, to God, and another person. Why not admit to a couple other people to get different perspectives? I love that idea. Thank you for sharing that, Terry.
It says it in our book. It says person or persons. I forgot what page it is. Persons means multiple people. I recommend you telling your fourth step to your sponsees. I had a sponsee. He's got the longest time right now in 3 years, and he was like, "I never realized how effed up you were." Who
Love
would have
it.
thought I would go try and spit on someone's car last week, right? I'm Mr. AA over here, Mr. CA over here. I'm spiritual man. That's all crap. That's all just an attachment to who I'm not. When you write inventory, everybody, you're finding out who you are not, and you get rid of that cat, and your true authentic self will come to play, just like I talked about with my son. We're going
Mm,
back home to that state, living right here, right now. Right. Cool.
love it. Yeah, thank you so much, Terry. All right, next question comes from an anonymous attendee. This person says, "Can you speak about having feelings versus snorting them or going into self pity regarding emotional sobriety?"
So, can I speak about having feelings versus snorting them, or going into self pity regarding emotional sobriety? I'll tell you that self pity is a dangerous thing. You know, with pride, I'll stand on top of a throne and you could kick my throne off, right, and I'll fall out, right? The self pity is I'll bury myself, and nobody's around to see me do it. It's probably the most sickest emotion that you could deal with. The only way that I could actually deal with my defective character, manifestation of self, is I can't do shit. I have to give it to God. And character defects, people talk, oh, my defects of character, blah, 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 blah. If I need that character defects, right? Because it gives me back to pain that brings me back to God. Because if I had no character defects, then I'll be Jesus Christ walking on water, but I'm not. I'm a spiritual being having human experiences today, right? I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks for that, Terry. Appreciate that. All right, next question comes in from Adam from our live audience. Adam says, "If you have had problems with someone for years and who works for your family and he is constantly out to get you, how would you go about making amends to them?" And I'd like to build on that just a little bit because you talked about, it's a softer, easier way avoiding amends that could be harmful to you or to others. Why don't you talk about this one and then how you would go about doing a potentially dangerous amends?
Yeah, I mean, look at where you're making mistakes. Look at where your faults, where you to blame. When you disregard the person entirely, not easy to do. Not easy. In our sixth step, it says, are we now willing to let go of everything that's objectionable? Objectionable means unwanted, right? And what's objectionable is my judgments, which is column two. And that is blocking me off from the power. What's going on is you're disturbed. If whenever I'm disturbed, it's there's something wrong with me. Whenever I'm upset, something wrong with me. Do I truly believe that my troubles are basically my own making? Look at the positive aspect of that. Look at the positive aspect of it. All my issues are self-imposed. Look at the positive aspect that I'm a deliberate manufacturer of my own misery. Look at that. Honestly, look at that. That means people could act and think and do whatever they want, but they won't disturb you, regardless of what they're doing. Why? Because they are a child of God. And perhaps they are spiritually sick, like me too. That's where the transformation happens here. When I look at the fourth step, I'm being controlled and dominated by resentments. And if you have a good sponsor, they'll show you. So basically, I have a belief system. Somebody harms that belief system, like you talked about, working for my family, blah blah blah, and then I cop an attitude, and I go get drunk, or I get disturbed, or I go off in sprees, like gambling sprees, sex sprees, stuff like that. Whatever to treat the spiritual separation between you and God, or the spiritual malady, whatever you want to call it. It's like being stuck in traffic. I'm pissed off, stuck in traffic, right? And I got to be somewhere, right? I got to be work in 10 minutes. And this is the second time I'm going to be late to work, right? So I'm disturbed, right? I'm disturbed going on. And there's a helicopter, Channel 7 News helicopter that has a different angle on what's happening in front of me. Could be a 20-car pileup. It could be two or three people that are dead from fatalities from a car accident, but I don't see that because I'm looking at it through the lenses of my car. All I have to do is turn that radio on and find out what's happening and find out perhaps they're spiritually sick like myself too. This is where the transformation happens. We're not looking at the event. We're looking at what we've done with the event moving forward. So look at what your actions, where you're to blame, where you made mistakes, where you've been selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate, or frightened. Where have you acted out? Where have you potentially caused harm? Did you ignore someone? Did you withdraw from them? Did you not talk? You ever go to someone, you just don't talk to them, or you see them, you look the other way? They take that in too. Am I operating in God's playground, and I'm just operating on the outskirts of God's playground, right? And managing and playing, arranging the lights, the ballet, the scenery to fit my role. What's happening is just get undisturbed and look at it through inventory and get someone who is in a recovered state, someone who has a working knowledge of the big book and who could show you that these things are objectionable to you, right? These are the things that are blocking you from the power. And once you have that, it talks about in our step, spiritual release, nothing could harm you, regardless of COVID. COVID was crazy. People were dying, 800 people were dying a day in New York. Crazy. Why was I happy, joyous, and free during this time? Because I was doing intensive work with other alphys, and I was demonstrating these principles on my affairs, and I was living the words that were in this book. I was being a demonstration of literally everything, being a demonstration that there's a solution, being a demonstration of vision for you, being a demonstration of working with us, and so on and so forth. I hope that answers your question. I know I went on a little tangent.
No, I think so. I think so. And if you wouldn't mind taking just a little bit of an angle on that, how do you find the willingness to make those difficult amends? Jump
Yeah,
into the willingness part of that.
yeah, that you can't teach that. That is all associated with pain. What happens in our book, it says we're going to be reborn. That's our third step promises, which are future promises if we draw close to God and perform His work well. So, what happens when I'm being reborn? That means something's got to die. That means the alcoholic ego, the addict ego is fighting for its life, does not want to make that amend. Screw that. That's too uncomfortable. Screw that. That's too much pressure. Screw that. I don't want to go to jail. You know, why do I want to make amends and go to jail? What happens if I'm going to make amends to a crack deal? They might kill me. I don't want. That's scary. What do I do in that moment? Is I pray for the willingness. Pray for the willingness. Create a prayer for yourself for the willingness to make that amend. And what will happen? A transformation will happen where one day it just happens. Happened with that dude who I tried spitting on his car. 3 months being angry at this guy. 3 months I was disconnected and disturbed. 3 months that I was having collision at work. I hated going to work, right? I prayed for the willingness to make that amend. Prayed for the willingness, pray, and it just came. It came over me. Very in our book, it says the change comes over us. Something happens, right? So I recommend praying for the willingness. If you don't have it, pray for the willingness to be willing. And then one day, enough pain from the alcoholic ego will fight for its life. You feel like ripping your skin off. You feel like getting high and drunk again. The willingness will come right back, just like you were on day one, willing to do whatever it takes, right? Willing to go to any lengths. Remember we did. Remember we made a promise to do that. I forgot about that one, right?
Hmm.
The willingness will come if you pray for it. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much, Terry. We've had a couple of requests, and what I'll do with this is requests for the 12 spiritual practices, the link of the meeting that you attend that you said there's going to be a great speaker in and everything like that.
Yep.
So what we'll do is if you could send me those links and that information, Terry,
Yeah.
I'll put it in the show notes of the podcast. I'll put it up on the WhatsApp group that we have. I'll put it up on our Facebook page, our private Facebook page, so you can all get to those if you're part of those. And you can pull it off of the podcast that will be live later this afternoon. All
Put my
right.
number. You can put my number in there too. I'm on WhatsApp. So if you guys
Okay.
want some more explanation
I'll
on the
put your
practices.
if you're okay. I mean, the number if you want your number posted like publicly on the WhatsApp or whatever, that's okay with me. If you'd like people to reach out to me and I share it with them individually through email or something like that, we can do that. Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Let's do the second route.
Okay. Yep. So if you want to get in contact with Terry, send an email to RECO12pod at gmail.com, RECO12pod at gmail.com, and I'll get you connected with Terry. All right. I've got another question for you before we wrap things up. Early on in your share, Terry, you said something it hit me in the chest and made me think, maybe I need to address something here. You said, living in steps 10 through 12, and that's it, is an easier, softer way. So share with us why step 10 as a daily review isn't quite sufficient from your perspective here as we talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about all our prayers prior to that. And look at our lay aside prayer, right? That's directly came out of we agnostics. A little bit from how it works. You guys remember when you took a drink or took a drug, it took you, right? You became the drink, you became the drug. I ended up in different states when I did it, right? When you do a prayer, you become the prayer, right? What happens when I become a demonstration of the lay aside prayer? Lay aside everything I think I know about dot dot dot, so I may have an open mind and open a new experience with dot dot dot. I start to lay aside my agnostically inclined mind, and so I can have an open mind and new experience. I'm living step 2 that God can and will if He were sought. That there is a God, it's not me. Is God everything or else he's nothing? What's my choice to be? You could be broke in sobriety. You could be homeless in sobriety and practicing 10 and 11, 12. What about 2? What about 2? Everything you think you know. Why do I need to lay aside everything I think I know, Justin? Because I think I fucking know
Because
everything.
I think I know everything. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I think therefore I am. I think Henry Ford said that bullshit, right? And literally I think my thoughts are real. I'm not living in step 2. I'm living in the past or I'm living in the future. And there's no God in the future or in the past. What about step 3? What about making a fresh decision at every single moment of my life to turn my will and my life over to the care of God? I like to say, do the right thing right now, not do the next right thing. Do the right thing right now. It's a moment to moment basis. Do the right thing right now. Do the right. My wife tells me, hey, can you do the dishes? I'm like, oh shit, I don't like doing the dishes. Do the right thing right now. Do the dishes. Right? To spit on this car, do the right thing right now. No. Okay, turn around. You know, I'm living in step 3. I'm living in living the words that are in this book, right? Taking a regular inventory. Look at you, 10, 11, 12. So say I go through the steps once and I live in 10, 11, 12. Am I going to catch everything in 10 and 11? Most likely not. It's like being on
Um,
the Empire, you got the Empire State Building, right? Say like resentment comes in, right? Your step 10 tries to catch it in the middle, doesn't catch it. Step 11 will catch it. Okay, great. I caught it. I can make corrective. What happens if it goes through both? And then I'm walking around asleep, dreaming I'm awake at work. Try living step 3. It talks about in our book, am I convinced that any part of my life, lived on self-will could hardly be a success? Here's a spiritual exercise. Remember, spiritual life is not a theory. You have to live it, Justin. Practice this. Go to 2 to 3 people who you've given spiritual consent to post you up on your BS, who are conduits and messengers of God, whatever. Because if I go to God with all this and I say God's my sponsor, then God has a fool for a sponsee, right? I mean, if I heard the word of God, my head would probably explode. I need people who are messengers, right? Who talk through them to talk to me, right? And go to them and ask them, how do you see me running my life on self will? And you shut up. and you listen. No rebuttal. Even though you don't like it, oh, I don't agree with that. That's bullshit. Don't do no that. That's not me. That is the ego talking. That's the ego going through your mind. That's not. Listen to what they have to say, and they'll tell you how you run the show, how you have a script for everybody in your life, and you don't send them the script. And then when they go off script, you're constantly hurt, threatened, or interfere with. How you open the door up for a sweet old woman, and she walks by and doesn't say thank you. Yo, where's my thank you? I just opened up the door for you, right? This is what we're talking about. Then here's another. This is all current experience. And I'm not looking at the past anymore. I'm looking at right here, right now. And if there's a lot of collision, a lot of disturbance, I got to go through steps 4 through 9 again. I just have to. If not, I'm gonna be closer back to a drink or closer back to a drug because my mind's gonna speak so loud. There's gonna be no God consciousness. I ain't praying and meditating, listening to God for a minute in the morning. That ain't gonna happen, right? Here's the second part of it. Go to who are non-alcoholics or non-addicts, who are normies, you can say. Ask them, do you see me being authentic? And you shut up and you listen. No rebuttal. And they'll tell you how you run the show. And if there is collision in your life, if there's disturbance in your life, if you're watching and you're seeing disturbances and you can't see it, it doesn't resonate with you. It's not a gnosis. It's not an experiential thing. There's no connection with it. Then write some inventory and tell someone about it. See the things that are objectionable, give it to God, clean up the wreckage of the past. Get back to right here, right now. Because then you're growing and maintaining a spiritual experience. I hope that answers your question. I went a lot of different directions on that.
No, that was solid, man. Solid. And I wrote down that question that you mentioned there to go to 3 people right on the top of my mind today and say, hey, how do you see me running my life on self-will? And then just shutting my face. Yeah. And just listening. Because, man, I sure want to come back at them. So, yeah. Good. Thank you so much, Terry. And thank you all. We've had, I think, 36 people here at the peak. We got 30 people here now. Thank you all for being here for this great RECO12 weekly speaker meeting. If we missed your question or if you have more questions, please consider joining our WhatsApp community. You can do that by emailing RECO12pod@gmail.com and requesting to get in there. We have it as a closed community, so it's by invite only. And if you're feeling inspired, please consider sharing your insights on a 3 to 4 minute 12-step style recording on the RECO12 Shares SpeakPipe link that I've posted in the chat, and I'll post in there again. And if you have not already rated and reviewed the podcast in Apple Podcasts, please consider going to do so now. It's a great way to help us work our Step 12. And please make sure to check out the Afro-Euro recordings that Karen A hosts on many Wednesdays. And next week, in this meeting, we're going to hear from another first-time RECO12 speaker, Purdy, who will speak about, quote, a mind that sits free. I'm really excited about that one. Stay tuned on the WhatsApp community and on our email list for more information on that. And if you aren't on the email list or in that community, please send, like I said, another email to RECO12pod@gmail.com and ask to be included. Now, let's launch off into the rest of our day with the thank you prayer. That's from page 75 of the big book that Terry will say for us.
It's on the last paragraph of the page 75, 3 lines down. And this is the condensed version of that sentence. Let's have a moment of silence for the addict and the alcoholic who suffer inside and outside these rooms. Most importantly, pray for the family members and the friends and coworkers who are the closest to tornadoes. God, thank you. Amen.
Amen. Remember, all there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, everybody. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
There was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to scream, but the sound never came out. So he reached for the bottle to wash the pain away, 'cause what he wanted so badly was to live a different way. And all of his problems and all of his pain of the lake, and he knew for certain that he was just a fake, just a fake. Was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to share, but only lies ever came out. So he reached for the needle to numb the pain inside, and the truth that he yearned for shriveled up and died. And all of his problems, and all of his pain, filled up the puddle, rose with the rain. Ship kept on sinking, bottom of the lake. He knew for certain that he was just a fake, just a fake. Side of his mouth as he read from the book, only truth spilled out. So he reached for a power to help him through the night, 'cause what lives in the darkness